Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to be continuing our Succeeding with Stoicism series. Our previous video we talked about the concept of Memento Mori, or meditating on one's death. And I'm not going to go too much into that. If you haven't seen that video yet, I'd recommend that you check that video out before watching this one. It's going to pop up in one of the corners. I never figure out if it's this one or this one, so I'll just point at both. And this video for the series, for today's video, I want to talk about something pretty similar. That's why I want you guys to check out the Memento Mori video first. That's a prerequisite for today's video. Today's video is about the concept or the practice of Premeditatio Malorum, or meditating on potential future negative events. That's very long, so I'll shorten it to, you would call it negative visualization. The practice of negative visualization. And what that is, very shortly, is thinking of, it's a way to prepare yourself for the future, for what may go wrong in the future. So in our previous Stoicism video for this series, Memento Mori, we talked about how if you look at it on a spectrum of people who practice that concept of Memento Mori, I made an argument for a balanced view of that technique. So to one side, we have people, let's say, who never think about the fact that one day, not only are they going to die, but that they have no idea when they're going to die. And then at the other side of the spectrum, you have people who obsess over it. And we don't want to obsess over the fact that we're going to die. But I get it. I get how that could be. It's a morbid practice, of course. And I get how it could be depressing for people, too much. So that's why I argued a balanced approach to the practice. To use the fact that you're going to die, and not only that, but that you have no idea when you're going to die, to provide you with a sense of urgency in life. And not just a sense of urgency, but a sense of gratitude and appreciation for everything and everyone you have in your life. Because not knowing when you're going to die, but certainly knowing that you are going to, you would think, provide you with a sense of urgency. Now we got to get things done, and also to remind yourself that everything in your life and everyone in your life ultimately is fickle, and it can be taken from you in a moment. So to branch off of that in a similar way, today's video is about Premeditatio Malorum and how it can help us. So this practice, it's very simple, and it's very similar to Memento Mori. It's basically thinking about how things in the future could go wrong. So I would, and this is something that I have turned into like a meditation of some sorts. And I've been getting into meditation in my life recently. Trying to make it into a habit, trying to make it into a habit of mine. But it's hard, meditation is hard. Not in the traditional sense of the word, if you want to say, but meditation is hard because it's boring. It takes a lot of willpower and it's a paradoxical way of thinking. You wouldn't think that it would take a lot of willpower to just sit and do nothing at all. But it does, and you have to deal with your wandering thoughts, and along with that, the boredom. It's boring to meditate. It's very boring to meditate until you learn to sink into it, as I call it. Now, this isn't a video on meditation. I can make another video on meditation, and I'm no meditation expert or anything. But this practice of Premeditatio Malorum is similar, and I include it in my meditation sessions, where I take some time to think about what could go wrong in the future. So maybe one way you can do it is when you notice yourself worrying about something, you can ask yourself, all right, well, yeah, what if this does happen? Then what? Yeah, what if I get that 3 a.m. call that my mother or my father has passed away? Or yeah, what if I get into a car accident on the way home from work and I end up paralyzed? Or maybe my boyfriend or girlfriend in the passenger seat ends up paralyzed for life. Or to a smaller, less extreme, for a smaller, less extreme example, let's say I do fail this big test that I'm going to take. Then what? What would I do? How would I? And this spurs you to prepare for that. You can't prepare for everything, of course. Some things are going to catch you off guard in life. Actually, a lot of things catch us off guard in life. That's life, because life is what happens when we're busy making plans. But Premeditatio Malorum, this practice of negative visualization, I think can certainly help us not be taken so off guard emotionally. It's probably the more important part. Because Stoicism as a philosophy is the philosophy of mental toughness and tranquility. I said that in my introductory video on this series, which you guys should also check out if you haven't watched that. I'll have it in one of the corners again. Yeah, Stoicism is the philosophy, I think, of mental tranquility and toughness. And a big theme, as we talked about in the philosophy, is the reality that you don't have control over everything in life. You don't always even have control over things just in your immediate grasp, like in your personal life. But we do have control over how we feel about events. We have control over how we feel about what someone says to us, about what someone does to us at work. And we have control, certainly, over how we respond to these events, how we respond to what this person says, what happens at work, and what happens at school, and so on and so forth. So I would say that if we split the philosophy into these two categories, mental toughness and mental tranquility, I would say the Premeditatio Malorum lands in the first box, in the mental toughness category. I think, as I said, you could use Premeditatio Malorum as a way to help to spur yourself to plan for the future and to prepare yourself to make a plan B or C or D for events. Like I said, to ask yourself things like, okay, I go in here, I try my hardest on this test, I fail. What are the implications of that? And how can I be ready for it? You know, let's devise a plan. So if I do fail, we're not planning for failure. Not in the sense that we are bogging ourselves down so much with this mindset that we do fail. We're instead planning for failure in the sense, just in the literal sense, that we have a plan B in case things fall apart. So that's important. But when we remember about the spontaneous, erratic nature of life and how it doesn't care about us, ultimately, then I think Premeditatio Malorum is even more helpful in the sense that it helps us prepare emotionally, as I said. When things happen to us in our life, if we've been practicing negative visualization, or if we have already been thinking about how things could go wrong in the future, if we've already thought about how we could fail this test, or if we've already thought about how our girlfriend or boyfriend may break up with us in the future, or if we've already thought about how we may be laid off or terminated from our job, if we've already thought about these things, then if and when they do happen, at least in theory, we wouldn't be as emotionally devastated. So, Premeditatio Malorum calluses the mind. Not to not feel anything. And I may have touched on this in my first video for this series. When I talked about Stoicism, people have an idea, a picture in their head of what a Stoic is. And I don't claim to be a Stoic. I'm not an expert of Stoicism. People seem to have this preconceived notion of what Stoicism or what being a Stoic is. People usually think of soldiers and men, usually, and they think of people more broadly than just men, just people in general who never display emotion, ever. And that's not what Stoicism is all about. I would say Stoicism is partly that, on a case-by-case basis. That's more for immediate success in situations. That when a situation arises that is very stressful, very chaotic, everyone around you is freaking out and losing their heads, what you have learned in Stoicism and what you can apply from Stoicism in the moment can help you push those emotions to the side for the moment. Because I would never advocate for, some people call this toxic masculinity. I don't, because I wouldn't confine it just to the boundaries or the confines of masculinity, or to men, I should say. I mean, everyone has the ability to do that, and I think, which is good, is that there's a greater awareness being made and spread about how maybe it's not such a great idea to bottle up your emotions. But in the moment, Stoicism can help us push them to the side temporarily, tell us we're going to deal with this later, but right now we need to be calm, we need to have a level head so we can get through this situation successfully. And Premeditatio Malorum, or negative visualization, can help with that, I think. It's helped for me, and I think it can certainly help you and everyone, I think, by planning ahead emotionally, if you want to say. So in a way, you could look at it as you're already living these experiences before they even happen, if they happen, right? They may not. But you're kind of creating a second life for yourself. And you're kind of like as if you were reading a book, or when you watch a movie, you go somewhere else. I would say you go somewhere else, albeit to a very dark place. But you go somewhere else temporarily and ask yourself what this would feel like. You put yourself in the shoes of yourself in very bad situations to see what it would feel like emotionally. And once you've felt that, and once you've visualized these experiences, once you've visualized these situations, potential situations, at least in theory, you should be better able to handle it emotionally if and when the moment presents itself in your life. And that's basically the concept of Premeditatio Malorum. It's helped me a lot. And I believe it can help everyone to try this. But as I said with Memento Mori, there's an extreme to go to on both sides of the spectrum, but really I think it's dangerous to go to the side of the spectrum with this, to where, like with Memento Mori, you depress yourself by thinking about all the awful things that could happen, or you're worrying so much. This shouldn't be something that boils over into anxiety. I mean, seriously, like into actual anxiety. It shouldn't. That's not what I'm advocating for. I've advocated always for a balanced approach to these concepts in Stoicism, because they can be morbid and they can be a lot if taken too far. But if taken with a balanced approach, I think they can be very helpful in callousing the mind and in cultivating this tranquility, this peace and tranquility in us, in our minds. So we don't want to be obsessing over the fact that bad things can happen in the future. Especially if bad things are already happening in our life. That's not going to help. That will just compound our stress in our lives. But a small daily dose of negative visualization goes a long way. A small temporary dose goes a long way. We're not keeping ourselves stuck there. We're not going to dwell on it. Just like how I don't believe it's good to dwell on the past, on negative things that happened in the past. I also don't think it's good to dwell on negative things that could potentially happen in the future. Balance is key here, I think. But with a small daily dose, let's say, as I do with myself, sometimes in the morning and sometimes at night, I think it can be very beneficial to callous our mind. And so when we find ourselves in these situations, we say to ourselves, oh, I've already been through this. I already know what this feels like. I am ready and prepared for whatever happens. I'm not completely caught off guard because I knew that this could happen someday. I knew that someday I would get that 3 or 4 a.m. call about a family member passing away. I knew I would get that email from work that something's come up and someone's going to talk to me because I've been accused of something that I didn't do at work. I knew that it could happen someday to where my partner wants to break up with me. I knew these things could happen and may happen. So I'm not completely thrown off guard that they are. I know that these potentialities exist. So I'm ready. And I think that's very helpful. Not to the extreme. And certainly not doing it at all, because then you're thrown off guard all the time and very naive about the world, but a balanced approach. So that's roughly the practice of Premeditatio Malorum. I hope it helps you guys. I hope practicing, practice of negative visualization really helps you guys. It's helped me. I think it will help you guys a lot as well. So if you've enjoyed this today, you want to see more content in the future, please subscribe. It helps me out a lot. And make sure I keep making these videos and you guys can keep getting the content that you like. And also make sure to drop a comment down below, join the discussion, and let me know what you guys would like to hear from me next. Until next time, peace.